While Donald Trump is leading on about 80% of the issues, whether it be the economy, inflation, namely the border, foreign policy, etc., you really do understand that there are some weaknesses in the Trump campaign. And with the addition of Vance, these problems are not assuaged. In 2024, this presidential election may come down basically to the fact that abortion and the pro-choice position is triumphant over the pro-life message. Now, how would this really affect the election prospects for Donald Trump, and namely for Kamala Harris? How does something like a Florida referendum really put Trump in jeopardy and put him in a very hard position? Think about being between a rock and a hard place politically. Now, there's a ballot initiative in the state of Florida that is basically a precursor politically to a bigger national issue in the swing states. As you can see here, Florida obviously isn't really in contention, and no matter what happens with abortion, it's not going to be the end of the world in the state of Florida for Donald Trump. But what we're talking about here is states like Arizona that have ballot initiatives right on the ticket that will say, are you pro-choice or pro-life in the most layman of terms? What that means is that, we have an issue where Republicans are losing actually on this issue tremendously. In fact, in 2022, why wasn't there a red wave? I could honestly tell you that about 2/3 of the reason was the Dobbs decision and the overturning of Roe v. Wade and a spite vote as a result. In fact, let's look into the exit polls. But before we do so, let me explain to you why this is important, okay? Donald Trump on the debate stage might be pressed and asked and forced into a bind where they say, Mr. President, you're a resident in Mar-a-Lago in the state of Florida, where they're going to have a vote on whether or not you should restrict abortion, let's say up to viability. And then he's going to have to say, are you voting for it? Yes or no, or give some sort of beating around the bush answer. I don't know what the hell you could do in that case. The reason why I think it's a troubling thing is because obviously the right answer would be like, no, I'm pro-life. I'm voting against the initiative, posited by liberals. But the truth is that obviously if he does so, he will lose moderate support. But if he also says, well, you know what? I'm voting against the initiative, for the initiative, and I'm more pro-choice that I'm letting on, then he might lose some evangelical vote. At least a lot of people on his camp, on his side of things, are saying that. Now, I kind of disagree with that. I don't think, honestly, even if Trump were all for abortion, you would still want to vote for him as a conservative over Kamala Harris. But some people are stubborn, to be honest. Now, this is why I'm telling you this. So there's going to be about 8 states with abortion on the ballot. And again, abortion is super popular, believe it or not. It's an ugly term, but it's completely true. Pro-choice initiatives have won basically all over the place. In fact, they've won in places like Ohio. Again, a state that Trump won by like 10 points 2 times back to back, 16 and 20. He won that state by about 8 percentage points, okay? And it voted about 20 points to the affirmative for allowing for abortion, okay? So think about that. So a state like Arizona, which is definitely less Republican by any means compared to Ohio, all of a sudden we're going to expect that to not hurt Donald Trump. It definitely will. A state that Trump might win on paper by 5 might get narrowed down to maybe 1 or 2 percentage points, or a loss completely to Kamala if it comes down to it. Again, there's a citizen-initiated measure that would amend the state constitution to protect the right to an abortion up to viability, okay? This is a popular position. A lot of people would say, actually, this is insane policy, but it is popular. Again, Florida has a similar prospect, okay? Up to viability in November 2024. So right now, let's look into the election in 2020. How did abortion affect the 2020 election? It hurt Donald Trump for sure. Now, was it the biggest deal? No. Now, what lost Trump the election, besides obviously the finagling of the rules, the outsized funding, the censoring of the Hunter Biden laptop story and everything, anything you can come up with? Yeah, obviously we know that. But I'm just saying when it comes down to the final scoreboard, screw what the refs say. Who wins the Super Bowl? Who gets the ring? That's the bottom line, okay? You can't complain like, oh my God, it's like, okay, but who wields the power? At the end of the day, abortion did definitely help Joe Biden against Donald Trump. And had it not been for abortion being an issue, Trump would have won. In fact, Trump was about 46,000 votes away in 3 different states from flipping the Electoral College result. So just keep this in mind. Now, in exit polls, an exit poll in layman's terms is you sample and you survey people that just walked out of the voter booth and you're like, okay, well, what were the issues, bro? And you see right here, Biden, when it comes down to abortion should be, and then you see this, it says it should be legal in all cases. 25% of people say so. Legal in most cases. That is 26% of people. You look at, so that is about 51% of people, generally a majority, agree with pro-choice rhetoric. Whereas when it comes to or I guess pro-life rhetoric, you've got illegal at 25% of most cases and illegal in all cases at a minority at 17%. Okay. So you realize this and you understand that the abortion position was at a negative footing. In fact, if you look at it, You had 42% that were pro-life and about 51% that were pro-choice. Okay, that's a negative 10 percentile over something that is an issue that is life or death. Big problem. Okay, now the 2022 midterm, an election where Joe Biden had like a negative 7% approval rating. He was going down ever since the Afghan withdrawal debacle, among other things, obviously, inflation and a myriad of different issues. And all of a sudden, Democrats, although lost the House and lost ground all over the place, they still kind of retain more than you would have expected, given the circumstances, due to the fact that abortion really supported their turnout. Now, look at this. Democrats, when it comes to what party do you trust more to handle abortion, and it doesn't mean if you're pro-life or pro-choice, it's just saying, like, generally speaking, who do you support in the most esoteric of senses? You see that 53% of voters supported Democrats and 42% supported Republicans. That's a margin of negative 11. Okay, that's bad. All right, so look at this right here. So abortion should be legal in all cases, legal in most cases. You add that up, that is 59% of voters were pro-choice tacitly or enthusiastically. Illegal in most cases or illegal in all cases, you have that at only 20%. Or sorry, you've got it at 36% in totality. So what you have is about 60% of people being pro-choice and 36% being pro-life and about 14% not having an opinion, okay? So what that means is that Democrats have a very strong footing on the abortion issue, and it's only getting worse over time. The rhetoric by the left has been more and more towards telling college girls and those types that they are obviously like, oh, your rights are being taken away and all this sort of jargon. That sort of thing is becoming more polarized, okay? You see 2012, these stats were a lot more even in regards to whether or not, you trust Republicans or Democrats on abortion rights. Now it's become more, again, polarized. Awful for Republicans. Now, let's look to what's going on now. When it comes to the importance of the vote, in 2020, abortion and healthcare in general was only 11% of people's first issue in 2020, whereas in 2022, it went up. It went up to 27% of importance, okay? And it was only 10% immigration. Think about that. The issue that Republicans are the best on is at 10%. Inflation was at 31%. Okay, so inflation obviously is a big issue even now, but when it comes down to abortion, that is still a big thing that Democrats could use to leverage over the Republicans in swing states, especially when it comes to the fact that obviously the importance of abortion has gone up for voters. And what that happens to be an issue for is Republicans, namely as they're outvoted 60% to 36% in pro-choice versus pro-life initiatives. Like I referred to you a few minutes ago, the Ohio amendment on November 7th of 2023 basically had a very basic agenda. Ohio issue 1, you saw that the pro-choice vote was at 57%, whereas the pro-life one was at only 43%. Again, a state voted liberally on this issue by like positive 13. When you look at it, that's a 21% difference between the people that voted Trump and then voted pro-choice. So what that basically means is that there's like about a fifth of people that are voting for Trump that are actually squishy on the pro-choice thing, and therefore to have a strong pro-life agenda is totally going to hurt the Republicans. And so to be painted by that by the media successfully would be awful for them. And so you really got to think about it, okay? You have Republicans leading on like 5 out of 7 of the major issues. 2 of the issues that they're losing on is abortion, which is the number one, the big kahuna, and you've got some other tangential stuff, like obviously the riots at the Capitol a few years ago, or democracy, or is Donald Trump going to be a dictator, all this sort of stuff. That's more CNN drivel. But when it really comes down to like what actually matters, the only major thing the Republicans are losing to Dems on is the abortion issue. And there's a lot of people that are conservative that have my opinion that obviously abortion is murder generally. But obviously, it's not a popular position. But people will say, well, Donald Trump cannot have a strong position on this, because obviously if he betrays the right, then he'll lose the vote of the right. I disagree. Or obviously other people will say, well, actually he needs to moderate. There's a lot of different discussions. But right now, what could happen in this election is that the only major state that will have will have a ballot initiative for abortion that would drive up turnout for the left, obviously, is Arizona. So let's assume Arizona goes blue, just if you look at the prediction. Right now, as you can see here, so let's just do the election prediction with Arizona as a handicap for Harris Walz. What I mean is that obviously if you give them the benefit of the doubt on the abortion being a big thing, which it totally can be, this would hurt Trump's odds, because now you have Harris Wall starting at 237 and Trump Vance behind by 18 at 219. It's not more complicated than that. Now, this doesn't mean that the abortion thing won't hurt nationally. It will most certainly will. And what I mean is that, obviously, when you have abortion, like I said, in 2022, why would a Democrat go out and vote in the polls? If they know that the inflation sucks, the president sucks, he's too old to be in there, etc. Ukraine, all these different things popping off. And ultimately, they had a reason to come out to vote because they needed to defend the Roe v. Wade overturn. They had to play defense and, in a way, offense by voting for defense on pro-choice legislation. So what I mean, guys, is that this is a troubling, concerning thing because, again, you're giving the Democrats a strong reason to come out. It's like if you had a really crappy Republican in a really crappy incumbent situation. Like, let's say John McCain somehow became president and there was a recession and everybody who's conservative is like lame and they're like, oh, screw it. Yeah, let Obama win. But let's say the Democrats somehow banned guns. Now, even though everything else sucks, the Republicans are going to be like, what the fuck? You're going to take my gun? So now they're going to go vote for the candidate that they wouldn't have turned out for in the first place. Well, what that means is that Kamala is going to be enforced, rejuvenated even. And so that's awful. Again, 2022 would have been a bloodbath had it not been for the abortion thing. And you could blame it on Trump. You could blame it on everything. Baby, you could blame it on me. But truth is that it comes down to pro-choice people. Now, when it comes down to it, let's assume that Trump wins these 3 states that he's leading in right now. It also becomes incumbent that the math changes. Typically, in my election predictions, if you win North Carolina, you win Georgia, you win Nevada, you're winning Arizona like 95% of the times. Okay, this is just basic math. But the reason why I bring this up is because normally, if you win Arizona, you only need to win 1 of the 3. So that gives Trump like 2 to 3 odds at that point that he would win the election. Now, just because Trump is actually missing 13 electoral votes to win, now he's going to have to actually win 2 states. What do I mean? If he wins Wisconsin, he doesn't have enough to win. He's going to have to win 1 of the other 2. Or he would have to win Michigan and Pennsylvania, which might be a bigger ask because they're bigger states and therefore there's more votes to have to persuade. So it's a difficult thing altogether. So it goes from 2 to 3 odds once you get down to the Rust Belt down to maybe 55% chance. So you can see how the abortion thing overall hurts Trump's odds by like about 5% nationally. Again, we're super autistic right now, and this is super niche, but I'm all into it, babe. Now, like the video if you agree. So anyway, with this election, though, obviously, if you don't have abortion on the ballot, it likely wouldn't matter in these states. So you could have an election like this, where Trump narrowly beats Harris Walls, like 286 to 252. And, this would be an awkward election because he'd be winning, obviously, but he'd probably lose the popular vote. He would have lost support relative to 2016, and he'd do better than 2020. So this is like the in-between hybrid result of the 2 elections. Now 3, if you count this one. So anyway, yes, abortion is a big issue. I don't know how Trump is going to be able to triangulate and maneuver around it. We saw Clinton do it in 96 with a myriad of different issues. Will Trump have the grace to do it? We don't know. So this could be the coup de grace or the death of Donald Trump politically if this abortion thing really becomes the issue that I think it might be. And in the future, I might make a video on how marijuana initiatives might actually also hurt the conservatives generally, but we'll see. Anyways, see y'all in the next one. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't before, and we'll see you on the next one. Adios.